Hello. Hi, Nancy. Can
Hello,
you hear
how are you?
me?
Yes,
Oh, nice to see you again.
and nice to see you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very happy to host this conversation with you today. And we are now in a sort of marathon with startups. 2 days. I'm very I start have some problem. No, I'm joking, but really 2 days with a nice and very dense agenda.
Yes,
Have you seen something
yes.
you follow? So let's go through the interview. I'm very pleased to have you, Nancy J. Levy. You are the managing director of Boston Landing.
Correct.
And first of all, I would like you to explain to us what is Boston Landing and your activity in the biotech sector.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my background is in biotech and healthcare. And in the last 15 years, I've been working with international entrepreneurs, helping them to build their businesses by using their assets in their own country, but then also starting to use those assets in the United States. So helping them to grow in the United States, get funding, get partnerships, get all those things that they need. And it's based on my background. So I do a lot of strategic work with them to think through what are the critical next steps that they need to make.
Oh, sorry, I missed you for a while. Okay, and I know that since we already have a conversation like this a few months ago during Digital Week, and we explore what is also what are the opportunity and what is going now there in US, especially in the Boston area, and also because I see there is a concept of supercluster, and then maybe you can explain to us what is the Boston supercluster. But I know also that you have a long experience also in Europe, so you manage a lot with a lot of European companies and entrepreneurs, and so and you have also an idea of a sort of European model, so not to be the copy of the US model or US innovation model, but also your experience in there. It could be interesting to share it with us. So starting telling us what is the Boston supercluster.
So the Boston supercluster started a long time ago. You could say it started 150 years ago. And that's part of the reason other areas in the world are a little bit behind. It started really with the universities and with the hospitals. So it was the combination of universities like MIT, who you all know, and Harvard, et cetera, as well as the hospitals, which had some of the best physicians in the world, were starting to work together on technologies. And in the 70s, that's really when the biotech cluster started, because that was when they first started to get some of the technologies that were necessary to kind of build the beginning, let's call it. So DNA was starting to be developed and understood in Boston and other areas. Antibodies, monoclonal antibodies, et cetera, were being developed globally. But these technologies, it's not that they were necessarily invented in Boston, but they were used by the infrastructure. And then in the early 80s, you guys probably all know Biogen and Genzyme. So all these companies, biotech companies, started to grow based on these technologies. And the difference is between Europe and the US. One is cultural. So let's just accept that, and I love European culture, especially the Southern European. So Italy, Spain. So Nancy.
Really we wait for you, that as soon as is possible, we wait for you, since you are in our Hall of Fame of in the international mentors. No?
Right. And so I truly so appreciate that culture, because that culture has so many important things associated with it. And the reason there are two reasons, again, that it's a little different in Europe. And that is, one is timing, because Europe just started later. And so if you start later, you're going to be later. I mean, it's just what it is. And culture too. I think that Americans, I don't know if, because we discovered the United States, but we're all just like, let's do it now. Let's just get there tomorrow. Let's, we're going to win because it's an American thing, I think. And those two things just, I believe, make it different. But I firmly believe the fundamentals in Europe, meaning the people, the technologies, even the government support, is there. Are you less risk-taking? So getting financing is harder? Absolutely. It's just part of the
evidence.
It's right. It's just what it is. Yes.
And so, in your experience, since also what you usually do, so with Biohealth Management LLC, which is the company that you run, and that is a company that is a commercial hub for foreign companies to the US market, correct? So
correct.
The main activity of Biohealth Management. So you bring projects from abroad and you translate them into the US language also. Not only bringing them commercially, but there's also a way to translate for the US market. It's correct.
That is absolutely true. And I'll just say one thing, and that is that I help my entrepreneurs do that. So I make them do it, but I sit on their shoulder, making sure they do it right. But I want them to learn how to do it, because then they can go back to their countries and do it again. They know what, so it's really a process of really supporting them along each step. So they see what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then also how to succeed. And it's worked really well, because people actually appreciate being able to do it themselves and understand what they're doing. So I'll help introduce if it's necessary, but generally I make the entrepreneur think through what it is they need to do, and then we figure out how they need to do it, and then help them do it in the United States.
So it's a very practical approach, a very, very strong approach to help them be really and enter the market with the right, also the right support, but also the right pace.
That's right. And it allows them to be independent, which most people really like to be. But, we all make mistakes no matter what. But if we can limit those mistakes and learn. So I have a lot of that information about what are the mistakes that everybody's made. So I can advise, don't go down that path. Let's do this path. And that just saves people time, because then they don't have to go down that same path. One of our companies in the Boston area, who's young, they just raised $20 million. They're doing very well. But the founders said to us that, if they had been able to work with us sooner, they would have saved like 5 years, because there were just mistakes that were made, which we could have said, don't do that, go this way. And it just helps kind of shortcut some of the time.
Sometimes it's a matter of shortcut, and to understand that if we save time and money also,
and money,
maybe the right things that we don't have, we cannot see the future anyway. But if we limit the mistakes and taking risks, but looking at what we have to do. So, and especially when a company approach a new market, because as you said, it's not just a matter of a new product or service, but it's also how to be related to the market and how to understand also the culture. Yes, it's a sort of
understand the culture.
Translator, the culture.
Right. Well, and the other thing we do, we have our companies come to the United States and stay, for example, at the Cambridge Innovation Center, which is not outrageously expensive by any means. So they're able to afford it and to start to really become part of the culture, to go to all the networking events, to start to meet the people, because that way they start to learn on their own also, what it's like. And they start to get a real sense around what they need to do, not just from me and my partners, but really from the whole ecosystem. And the ecosystem in Boston is so international. It started that way with the hospitals and the universities. So it's a very international area. It's very academic in many ways. It's not just a cut and dry business culture, I don't want to say like New York, for example, it's more of a financial thing. So there's a lot more business there. But in Boston, there's a huge amount of business, but the foundation of it is different than the foundation in New York, so that it's more welcoming, let's say, to people. People want to learn we learn from our entrepreneurs.
Because it's built on the academic or mostly on the cultural environment. So and so that's why maybe also because many people come there to study, to have a PhD or something like that. So to be part of an international, more and more arena in which they can not only be in the academia, but also start working on startups, for example, or creating new ventures and so on. And I know you have worked with many companies coming from Europe, but have you any experience from companies coming from Italy or project from Italy that you bring to the US market?
We've had projects that a while ago that we were working, and actually recently there's one that I started working with, but then COVID hit. And the funniest story about him is his technology. When he came and worked with me for a bit, his technology, he had meetings with Moderna, the company that makes the vaccine. So and then COVID hit. And so he's kind of, I think, waiting. But he had some technology that was important and useful in the RNA.
It's time to go back to now that the situation is more stable. And so yesterday, yes. You have opened again your borders.
Yes, I know.
So we are going to meet very soon, I hope. And yes. In your opinion, since you mentioned the idea of the ecosystem, so we are promoting also here the idea that obviously creating an ecosystem is something not only interesting and useful, but is the basis. So connecting people, connecting companies, creating the environment in which we can seed the ideas and grow ideas and create also a critical mass to be attractive for investors, from the corporates, but also from the financial sector and so on. And how you see which are, in your opinion, the main differences, apart that Europe maybe is a little bit, we started after, but anyway, which are for you, in your experience, the main differences between the European innovation ecosystem or some countries with which you have worked, and for example, US and Boston in particular?
Well, Boston is unique. So we'll use Boston because if you look at other states, they don't have an ecosystem. Other states in the United States don't have ecosystems like ours. Like California has an ecosystem that's similar to ours, but it's
different anyway.
Right, but it started in so let's kind of use Boston if that's okay. And I think, again, a lot of the difference is based on trust. Trust that risk is okay, so that the government in Massachusetts realizes that we may have to lose some money, but then we're going to make money if the government supports companies. So it supports both companies from Massachusetts, but international companies as well. So it will actually give them financing if they come here to work. All of our support groups like the Mass Biotech Council and Mass Medic, they'll support anyone. They'll support international people. They'll support people here. So it's very much, it doesn't matter where you come from.
But
It only
so
matters.
there you can be supported by all the ecosystem that you have set up in years and years.
That's right. So people don't look at you as, oh, you're Italian. Oh, you're Spanish. No, you live in Boston. You're an entrepreneur in Boston. That's really kind of the whole gestalt, because we're all from someplace else. I'm not from Boston. So I mean, you have to, my father was from France. I mean, you have to recognize that our world is very much a mobile world. And Boston has done that incredibly well. So I would say that's a big difference, that we just look at people coming in and we accept them and we work with them and try to help them grow. And the government, I would say, is very much into that. Whereas in Europe, it's harder to get the government. They may give money, but they need to be the convener. You need conveners who say, bring people together. Let's bring the lawyers and let's bring the consultants and and bring everybody together.
It's difficult, yes, yes, especially yes, because the EU, we have many interesting programs, but it's very difficult to approach this kind of program. Unlike you are able to do so, sometimes it takes a long time. So we have and financing from the public sector that is a long way. So
harder. It's just harder, and it's just different in Boston. It's in the United States, but in Boston. And something people don't realize is all of our government grants, except the SBIR and STTR, are available to international people. If you're here physically, or if you have a relationship with an American that you guys are, working together, we'll give you the grant if you're the right organization for that grant. So it's kind of like, if you can figure out how to play this game and play it, you can absolutely take advantage, just like we do, to try to build the company, because that's what the United States is trying to do. It's trying to build the next generation of, So that's really a difference, I would say.
And do you think that nowadays, since obviously the EU is not US in terms that we are very different countries, so you are different states, okay, also with different people, okay, because there are differences within the US, obviously, but here in Europe, we have really different states and many discussion about various issues on a continental view. And do you think that that now we are going to have this huge recovery plan? And I know the what I call the hypertrophic financing in US has already start with a big and huge recovery plan due to COVID. But also here we are going to have many resources, especially money, to develop or redevelop and rethink some elements, for example, in healthcare in Italy. And do you think that we in Europe, we have to think more on a European ecosystem, so connect more, or do you see that there is an advantage to maintain, for example, each identity, so Italy or France or so on, or we have to go further and go into a more common layer?
I will say the following. I would say both. I do not think the Italians should give up their Italian identity and how they work and what they do functionally. But somehow what would be great is if we could build the communication links, if we could connect the financing links, that kind of thing, where it crosses the border, those kinds of things that will support your companies. And so that way, if you have a company in Italy and in Germany, then that company can connect to Germany more easily, let's say for growth, for financing, whatever. But I don't think Europeans want to become I mean, they became the EU, and I think it's lovely, but in so many ways, it maybe didn't turn out exactly the way people thought it was going to be. And I think it's just because people are people. And if the United States tried now to become the United States, it would never work. And it only worked because it happened a long time ago when there were no people in the States. And so they just pulled them together. But as you guys know, right from the elections, if you look at the United States, it's just, so.
Yeah, we saw it was really
yes, you can look at us as a good example of what not to do sometimes. And I would say if we could get things more connected on kind of just business side, that would be the piece to do. That would be great. But it's hard. I think it's a very hard thing to do.
And a few last question. If you what you can suggest to an entrepreneur in the healthcare sector now for growth and to which kind of things can you suggest to?
Can I suggest? Do you mean things like look outside of your own country and look at where you actually have the best opportunity, not necessarily what country you're in? I would say that would be one thought. A second thought would be to build your network and really take advantage of the globalization of healthcare now, and if you have a good network, you can use them, and you don't have to use them in a bad way, but use them and then maybe do something for them, whatever. But that kind of thing, taking advantage of the fact that we're all connected, I think is really important, and figure out where your technology will have the most impact. If it's in the United States, you don't have to move to the United States, but try to get it there. If it's in France, if it's in wherever, India, figure it out and just take advantage of that. Because you can't.
So think globally, be connected and work on connection, and
Yes.
try to understand in the mid long term the impact of your technology. So is take advantage from it. So
that's correct. And I would like to say that I think your group, for example, is really such a great example of what can start to happen. And I think you're having a presence, having a building, but also then having this global reach and helping. I think I'm sure you're starting to see all the results from that, and everybody should.
We started operating after summer, really, because before it was quite impossible. Also, not the chance to be in presence. But now, for example, today we are both in presence and both from remote. Since you are in Boston, it's not possible to have you here today. But I hope we can really meet soon.
Yes.
Here or anywhere. Also, because we believe from the beginning that it is very important to be connected and to have the opportunities to exchange experience.
That's correct.
Experience and share knowledge and experience in order to create a common value and to build up something together and give value to ideas, because and find the right place for them.
And I think, again, without organizations like yours doing that, we would have much harder time doing that. So it's, again, I just give you kudos for doing the things that you guys are doing as well, because I think we wouldn't be able to build. And my last comment, which I have to say, is I found out like a year and a half ago or a year in COVID that we're doing financing here. I was listening to a venture capitalist that some of the financing that's going on in the United States is much higher than it used to be in healthcare. So just so everybody, it's not that you can walk into the United States and money is hanging on trees. It's not that. But I was like so happy. I think it's because of the vaccines. People say healthcare is a good place to put my money. So
But do you think, just a last question, do you think that, for example, there is a movement of capital movement now, and for example, US investors that are looking to European or Italian companies that because we have good quality and low prices?
Are you asking me, low prices don't, as you know, don't matter, but are you asking me, do I think that American investors are looking
and look abroad and invest in some companies in here?
I think that not necessarily investing there, but if that organization has some presence in the US, then
they're going to invest in it.
Absolutely. I've said this many times. Manufacturing can be in Italy. That's fine. Headquarters can be in Italy. That's fine. It's just
have a presence and be there to
have
understand better all the ecosystems.
That's it. So that's all, because they need to be able to say, oh yeah, I can go talk to, whoever, Roberta, she's right there. I mean, that's all.
I would like to do that. So maybe we can have a G-Gravity Boston with you.
Yes. Why not? Why not? I agree. So
Nancy, thank you very much for your time. I hope this is just the beginning, as we said in Digital Week, but okay, now we are more separative and now we are looking at the COVID situation in a different way.
Excellent.
Thanks to research and investment in healthcare. And so I hope to have the chance to meet you soon, and maybe we can get in touch and try to understand better how to create this bridge between G-Gravity and your organization and you, and build up something to help entrepreneurs from here to land
to create what they need to create to be there.
Yeah, to be an entrepreneur and to build up a company that will last in years or growth. Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much, Nancy.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.